Hello and welcome to ABP Live. I have with me today German Ambassador to India, Dr. Philipp Ackermann. Thank you for talking to us, Ambassador. And of course, we are very excited with the fact that the Chancellor will soon be visiting India later this week. What are the expectations and what is it that we are looking forward to in terms of bilateral ties between India and Germany?
So first of all, thank you for having me, Nayanima. It's a great pleasure to be with you today. And indeed, as you said, the Chancellor will come very soon. And we are looking forward to a very successful and very substantive visit of the Chancellor with Prime Minister Modi. And he's bringing along a very, very big and very substantive business delegation that shows one element of this visit, namely to try to deepen and intensify business relations with India. Now, Germany is by far the biggest trading partner of India inside Europe. We have a trade balance of 30 billion euros a year, which is basically quite a lot, and it has grown over the last COVID years even substantially. And what is even more noteworthy is it's a balanced trade balance. So it's 15 million on the Indian side and 15 billion on the German side, which is unusual, I think, in this context. And we want to intensify the German-Indian business relations, not least because the German business has decided to diversify, to move away a bit from their focus on China to look to other shores. And India certainly is one country that comes to mind when you think as an alternative to China. So that's one point. Another point, of course, is the geopolitical situation. So I expect the Chancellor and Prime Minister Modi to discuss what's going on in the world right now and comparing notes on how to tackle the problems we are facing. One is very obvious, that's the Ukraine crisis, the war of aggression Russia has started in Ukraine. But China will also certainly be on the agenda. A third point, I would say, is on climate change. Fighting climate change and energy transition. As you know, Germany is one of the main partners with India or in India, of India in this context. And we have a very, very broad portfolio of cooperation, also financial portfolio of cooperation with India on these matters. And I would say a fourth point in this is skilled labor migration. Germany is very interested to increase Indian migration to Germany when it comes to skilled labor. So German companies are very much looking forward to get very well-trained and skilled Indian citizens to work for a certain time in Germany. So that's certainly something is on the agenda. But let me just sum it up by saying Chancellor Scholz is extremely keen in having a very regular interaction with the Indian government. As you know, Prime Minister Modi was twice in Germany last year. This year, it will be the other way around. Chancellor will be here twice, first on this bilateral visit, later in the year for the G20 summit. And I think that's the clear intention for the mandate to keep up these yearly interactions between India and Germany. So you have to see that also in the context of a clear dedication of developing a very, very good personal relation with the Prime Minister.
Well, that's quite interesting. And also, Ambassador, the fact that, your foreign policy and security advisor, Mr. Plutner, was here. And there was this discussion, on the fact that how India can play a role in the ongoing war. And also your Chancellor is coming at a time when the war will be completing a year.
Exactly.
Which was really not expected because people really thought probably it will stop before it completes a year. But when you talk about the fact that India's voice is important, what is it that you really want India to do? Because we've seen Prime Minister Modi talking about the fact that, this is not an era of war. But what is the real role that you want New Delhi to play in this?
So I think that New Delhi has a very important role in this. As you rightly say, India is a more and more important actor on the world stage. India is not part of either group, so not the Russians and not the West, and has a very, very old and long-standing relation with Russia. So I think at a certain time, India is certainly it is very appropriate that India can come into the game and also try to find solutions to this conflict. But I must say, and this is my word of caution here, in order to get a result, you need to have some preparedness or some readiness of both sides. And when I see the Russian side, I don't see this readiness coming. You said that everybody was surprised that this war didn't stop after, or is still ongoing after a year. I would say the most surprised of all are the Russians, because they thought they would win in no time. So I think that was not on their agenda, that this war will last. But I think there is a decisiveness on the Russian side to go on with this war. I don't see any signs in Russia to sit down for serious negotiations and try to bring this war to an end. And therefore, I think the Indian side must weigh very carefully the moment when it comes in. And I don't think that the moment is there yet, but I know that the Indian side is very carefully observing the situation and might at some stage come in the game. And we would welcome that.
Okay. But then do you really believe that President Putin would be really keen to listen to New Delhi, to take as strong a decision as putting an end to the war? Because that's what the Russians are saying, that it is the NATO that is supplying the arms to Ukraine and that is making it more powerful. What are your views on that?
No, let's start by saying that there is one big country that invaded a smaller country. You can't. This is a conflict where the responsibility is crystal clear. It's a big country that wants a land grab from a smaller country. So basically, it is natural that the West, being extremely keen on keeping the international order going and preserving it, will support the country attacked against the aggressor, and that's why we support Ukraine. We want Ukraine to keep its territorial integrity. Now, I think that President Putin at some stage might realize that the cost is just too high. We've seen tremendous losses from the Russian side. Tens of thousands of soldiers have died. And at some stage, I think the Russian side has to recalibrate their game in this. But this time has not come yet. Now, if this is the case, and when, I think that the Indian side is a very respected, partner to sit down and talk to. So I am very confident that the Indian side can achieve something, but not under the current circumstances. You need more readiness, more preparedness from both sides to sit negotiations. And that means, the Russian side always says, if Ukraine accepts the annexed territory, then we are ready to negotiate. This is not a condition under which that is possible. Everybody must be everything must be on the table.
Okay. Also the fact that this is 1 year where India is the chair of the G20. Now, there are huge expectations from both the sides, right? What I get to hear from the Western countries is that probably India could play that role, at a time when the war is going on, to put an end in some way or the other. But then there are also expectations from the business and trade side of it, how India makes it more business friendly. What are Germany's expectations from this?
So I think so far the G20 presidency of India had a fabulous start. I mean, this is really a very ambitious program, not least because India has decided to spread all the meetings across the country, which is logistically is really a performance, it's unbelievable performance. So I must say kudos to the Indian side for organizing this. The big question will be how far this war will overshadow the negotiations to, let's say, a summit communique, a summit common language of the summit in September.
The main outcome.
The outcome that has to be negotiated between all the G20 plus partners. I must say I'm pretty confident that the Indian side will come up with a very good solution. And why am I confident? Because I've seen Bali. I've seen a situation which was very, very difficult, where the Indonesian president came out with a very, very, very acceptable statement for us. And I think the Indians were very, very important behind the curtain. So I think, they will manage. I think that this problem will be with us during the whole presidency. I don't see the war ending in the next couple of months. So there will be this very, very difficult situation between Russia on the one hand and the others on the other hand. But at the end of the day, I'm sure that India, with its skilled diplomacy, will find a good way out of that.
Also, coming to the strategic part of it, Ambassador, I know there are certain tensions that are going on between Germany and China, and also India and China. Yours maybe more from the business perspective, ours mostly from the political and strategic side. But Germany also has come up with its Indo-Pacific policy, which it had been promoting a lot. And German frigate was here in India a couple of years back. Do we see that kind of security partnership also enhancing under the Indo-Pacific framework?
I will say absolutely. You will see much more activities of German, armed forces in the months to come in the region. We have started with the frigate Bayern that also came to Mumbai at some stage, and I think Germany is decided to increase its presence in the Indo-Pacific for the very reason you were quoting. We see our relation with China is it's manifold, let's say. There is a partner idea when it comes to business, but there is also a competitor idea and also a rival idea. And we see with a certain concern the activities China has deployed in the Indo-Pacific, and therefore I think India and Germany and others are working together, cooperating to make a statement that this is not unobserved and is also matched by the appropriate measures. And therefore I think you can count on Germany in the months to come.
But you're essentially a trading nation, right? Export-oriented economy is what you have. But now you're having tensions with Russia and also, on the other hand, with China. How is it that Germany is managing itself in terms of, greater exports, also your import of energy and other things? What are the kind of policy changes you are doing internally?
So I would say that the policy change of last year was a huge step which we have taken. From a very long time, we tried to involve constructively Russia in the European peace order. We wanted to help develop Russia in a certain way. And that, we have to accept that and also admit it, has failed to a certain extent. So what you see is that German business has almost 100% withdrawn itself from Russia. I mean, there are some companies still working, but most of them have given up their business in Russia. With China, I would say the tensions are elsewhere. The business is going with China. It's not such a problem. But we feel that we should not put our eggs in one basket, and we feel that we should look elsewhere. So that's why I think India, being the only country that is in a comparable size and market-wise similar to China, is very important for us. So this sea change of politics we have undergone in Germany led to a more diverse and a more comprehensive look at what the world is offering to us. Now let me say one thing which came to our own surprise to a certain extent. We were expecting a very, very tough winter. Energy-wise, energy prices have gone through the roof. There was a certain concern that the storage of energy was not sufficient for heating and industries. None of that has materialized, and that's basically a very, very reassuring insight in a way. There was always enough energy. Energy prices have come down to the pre-war level right now. We have changed our energy mix in a very, very short time in a very satisfactory way, much more broader, much less dependent on one country. And what is more, the German economy has grown quite well last year and will even grow this year, where everybody thought we would slide into recession. That's not the case. So I think you can say that the German business is very solid, actually, and can even cope with these huge crises which we have seen over the last couple of months. And I'm quite reassured that the government has taken the steps that are necessary in order to empower the business to pursue this path of broader and more diverse activities in the world.
Also, Ambassador, since you said that the energy prices have come down compared to the pre-war levels, would you then say that maybe the oil price cap is working, although not all countries are participating in it? But how are the dynamics working out?
I think the oil price cap is working to a certain extent. I mean, we don't buy any Russian oil anymore. Nothing is zero now. It used to be high. We don't buy Russian gas. You must see that over 50% of German gas came from Russia. Now it's zero. It's just zero now, and we have changed that in less than 6 months, I would say. But as the price cap is frozen at a certain level, you see that the Russian sell is at a much lesser price. And therefore, I think it has the impact we wanted it to have. This is, I think, a measure the West has taken in order to show Russia that its action cannot be accepted and should be not unpunished. But I think if the Indians buy the oil at that price, we cannot have any problems with that.
Mm-hmm. Also, Ambassador, lastly, since you've answered the questions around the main visit, you also spoke about the fact that how German businesses are now looking at other shores, including India, out from China, right? At the same hand, the India-EU FTA is stuck. The negotiations have really not started the way it was expected to be. How is it that the German companies who are actually present in India for several decades are coping themselves, with the change in the regulatory environment? And also, are we expecting any newer investments coming in from Germany to India?
So that's a couple of questions, but let me start with the FTA. I would not be so negative, actually. It's true that it has not started in a very, or let's say it has started, but we are not at a very in-depth negotiation level now. You are right. But we come from very far away, actually, both sides, and we have to find the middle ground. So I think the next round in March will show, how serious both sides are in compromising. And I'm still very confident that at the end of the day, we'll find a reasonable way of dealing with each other. I don't think that this will happen overnight. It will take a certain while, but you should not forget this is the biggest single market in the world, the European Union, and there is a lot of beef for Indian companies. When you see how much India invests in Europe right now, it's quite remarkable. And therefore, I think it's absolutely in the interest of the Indian companies as well. Now, German business here is very keen on having it. They really want the FTA to be happening. Right. So we have about 2,000 plus German companies, and I'm very proud to say not only the big ones, the well-known ones like the car producers or Siemens or Bosch, but also very small, very highly sophisticated technical companies, small and medium-sized companies. So across the board, you have a rich variety of business models here in India. I think that 90%, 95% of them make good money here, but I think an FTA would change their approach to India completely. What is a problem? Tariffs are still a problem. A problem are taxes. Taxes, when a backflow of profits, for example, are highly taxed, too highly taxed. And that's something that might change, or will change, not might, but will change with an FTA. And that's something the German business is very keen on. Now, you ask me whether you'll see more investment. I can clearly say yes, that will happen. You'll see more partnerships. And I think during the visit of the Chancellor, we'll come up with one or the other very, very interesting news when it comes to the business community.
Well, thank you so much, Ambassador, for all those answers. That was Dr. Philipp Ackermann talking to ABP Live. This is Nayanima Basu for ABP Live, signing off, and with me on camera is Naman Mehra.